right, greetings and salutations, everyone. April the 18th, the year 2017. My gracious wife said that she, when she gets time, is going to try to set up a free Daniel Riley Facebook page. We've got probably around 8 to 10 letters from him, and we'll try to get scanned copies of those letters up on his Facebook page so people can have a place to go to read his letters. But in the meantime, I'm just going to read them into YouTube and create a free Daniel Riley playlist. So that's his address. We do recommend that you write him a letter. Encourage him. He's been in prison 9 years. All he did was stand up with Ed and Elaine Brown, and for his courage and for his boldness to stand with the Browns, his release date is 2035. What is that? That's, my goodness, 3 and 10, and it's 18 years away. He's got 18 years to go. He's already been in prison 9 years. You can imagine he needs some encouragement. All right, here is the letter. This is the letter. I scanned it. That's the envelope, and it's written. It was written in July 25th, 2015. So written nearly 2 years ago. Now, just as FYI, he told me in another private letter that this link should work and that I should be able to go there. The only problem is, I copied that link down and I went to that site, wikimises.org, whatever that is, and that link doesn't work anymore. I tried to search on Daniel Riley and whatever the case may be, and I could not find it. So from Daniel Riley's perspective, he's written lots of letters, 15, 20, 25, and they've just disappeared over the years, and so we're trying to help him locate some. One of them is called Legal Tender. He's lost that one. Another one is called The Character of Government versus the Character of Society. So he's looking for those two, but I simply can't find them. All right, this is going to be 5 pages, and it's going to take me a while, so let's get started. It was written in Terre Haute. Now, he's not in Terre Haute anymore. He spent a lot of time in CMU prison, and he knows some of the folks in CMU. All right, July 25th, 2015. American people, as the noose of tyranny continues to tighten around our dear liberty's neck, when will we decide to take action? Our precious Constitution and our beloved Bill of Rights are walking dead. The power of the people ceases to exist when the administrators of our social contract no longer abide by it. I understand many Americans are devoted to the Constitution the way it stands written in 1787. Upon honest and sincere reflection on the United States Constitution, one must candidly admit that its ambiguous and obscure nature has allowed this tyrannical central government to grow over us. Both Patrick Henry and Samuel Adams predicted that the Constitution would end with the enslavement of the American people. The former, on June the 9th, 1788, at Virginia's ratifying convention, declared, "Gentlemen may retain their opinions, but I look on that paper Constitution as the most fatal plan, and possibly be conceived to enslave a free people." Oh, has Mr. Henry's prediction come to pass. The Constitution has what is known as implied powers. This means, from the reading of the wording, one can imply or induce other expressions or things not explicitly stated. It has been mostly through these implied powers the enemy has come to rule our lives. Again, one of our wisest founding fathers, Patrick Henry, sounded the alarm bell about these hidden implied powers contained in the Constitution. On June the 7th, 1788, he stated, "If they can use implication for us, they can also use implication against us. We are giving power, they are getting power. Judge then on which side the implication will be used. When we once put it in their option to assume constructive power, danger will follow." The enemy lies to us, especially their courts, telling us that the United States government has limited powers, but yet, have you, with your own independent thinking, known any time where the government has been held to be operating outside its scope of limited powers? The government, especially their tyrannical courts, spin the words of the Constitution to mold it steadfastly increase their power over us. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 18, which I refer to as the Enslavement Clause, is purposely vague to allow for an overpowering central government. Again, our venerable forefather, Patrick Henry, warned us of the implications that would come on June the 7th, 1788, stating, "To make all laws which shall be necessary and proper to carry their powers into execution, implication is dangerous because it is unbounded. If it be admitted at all, and no limits be prescribed, it admits the utmost extension. They say that proposition is true by implication. They do not carry their implication so far when they speak of the general welfare. No implication when the sweeping clause comes. Implication is only necessary when the existence of privileges is in dispute. The existence of powers is insufficient. If we trust our dearest rights to implication, we shall be in a very unhappy situation. In other words, implication will be used to make the government's powers unlimited when they are found to be insufficient. Implication will not be used to benefit the people, protect their rights, or limit the government, but to do just the opposite, make government unlimited. Did you know the following? When the 10th Amendment was first proposed, it had the word explicitly in it. In essence, the power is not explicitly delegated to the United States, but upon debate in the new Congress, the word explicitly was removed, knowing if it was left in, implication would be destroyed, thus limiting the central government. And did you know the Confederate States Constitution was the same as the United States Constitution, except they removed Article 1, Section 8, Clause 18? In the perfect vision of hindsight, the American people were sold a limited government with no limits. How often do you see the 10th Amendment stopping the enemy's government dead in its tracks? Rarely, if hardly ever. The 10th Amendment, as written, rings hollow. Today's United States Constitution does not protect us from oppression, does not protect us from oppressive taxation. Originally, it did protect us from unbearable tax on our labor. The Supreme Court ruled in the Pollock case that taxes on income were illegal because they were not apportioned. The protection against tyrannical taxation was soon wiped away by the 16th Amendment. The enemy would have no limits on its government. The enemy proclaims with its cliché that taxes are what we pay for a civilized society. I could agree with that if the government was a frugal, non-extravagant, responsible, not unaccountable, honest, not corrupt, responsive to the general will of the people, not private special interest, promoted liberty, not taking liberty, respected privacy, not spying on Americans, promoted financial independence, not government dependence, etc. I proclaim taxes are what you're paying to enslave yourself. It is not logical to look at the Congress and President as a bunch of tax farmers. Are they not always looking to sow a new crop? I read that wrong. Is it not logical to look at the Congress and President as a bunch of tax farmers? Are they not always looking to sow a new crop of taxes? They say the power to tax is a power to destroy. I would be more specific and claim that the power to tax is a power to kill. The American people are overwhelmingly burdened like a pack mule to carry this enormously oppressive load of taxes on their backs, making our lives much more difficult to enjoy and be successful. Another aspect of the growing tyranny that must be reflected upon is the police state. Today's state and federal police forces represent the standing army the Founding Fathers were so adamant about preventing from coming into existence. This army writes millions of tickets a year, obliging its victims to go to court to receive cash-registered justice, taxing the American people even more. Roadblocks have become common occurrences in our time. These randomly set up symbols of tyranny should make the honest sentiments of American patriots' mind boil with anger. Random roadblocks set up without a specific urgent emergency have no place in a free society. The American people must honestly answer, are all police forces here to protect us or oppress us? We are told by the enemy that the police are needed to protect us from terrorism, that the terrorists are jealous of our freedom and want to take them from us. Such ridiculous statements are hard not to laugh at. Our enemy's scheme continues that we must sacrifice our liberties for more security, the very liberties they claim the terrorists are trying to destroy by force. History lets us know that tyrants have ever used trumped-up fears from abroad to take away liberty at home. Now is no different. The enemy's government heaps insurmountable debt onto our back and our posterity. For honest Americans, this is just unconscionable and unacceptable. The central government seizes about 2 trillion U.S. Federal Reserve notes a year from the people through taxation. Yet this is not enough for this monstrosity. It has to borrow another trillion to pay its bills. No household in America would continue to exist if it paid its bill via deficit spending each month. The results would lead to either bankruptcy, seizure of property, evictions, and possibly violence. Yet the central government is allowed to continue its ruinous ways unhindered, putting all our futures at unnecessary risk. Without explanation, all this writer has to do to make his point is point to countries like Greece and Spain, whose governments have brought tremendous suffering to its people by deficit spending. Simply put, deficit spending is nonsense on stilts. A standing army, extravagant taxes, and immense debt are the despotic instruments the enemy uses to bow our necks in obedience. Together, let these tactics unite the American people in loathing of the federal government. The way the American people should see it is that bowing our necks to federal tyranny is out of the question. It is not by submission that our forefathers achieved our independence and liberty. Let us not be awed into servility. Our simple, happy government has been exchanged for the horrid cells of deception and tyranny. Congress, from its bark to its very core, is corrupt. Bribery, also known as lobbying, is what wills the legislature. Career politicians are a wretched set of villains. They are self-seeking office holders out for their own selfish ends, making their own will or some private interest who has bought them, our laws. They consider government as a profitable monopoly. Federal politicians are an exclusive group with the same interest, to get rich. Each one has his snout firmly in the public trough, waxing fat. They are drunk with power and conceited with their own importance. They are determined to increase their wealth and power over the people. A politician who is out for the good of the people to increase liberty and leave as much money as possible in the working man's pocket are rarer than hen's teeth. Not a single politician cares about you. They care about using your misfortune to obtain their political ends. The point here in being, the Constitution is a document that is dead but for dying. Time and time again, the American people put their hopes in the next class of politicians to be elected to turn the tide of tyranny. Hope is not a method. Like a whale stranded on a mudflat, the American people are unable to free themselves for lack of proper effort. The pendulum continues to swing further away from liberty towards tyranny. The United States Constitution, as the social contract, is doing nothing to stop this movement towards tyranny. At this time in history, the paper the Constitution is written on is destined to wrap up mackerels at the fish market. The issue is clear: liberty versus slavery. Sooner or later, it's going to come to blows. Might must be used to make right. The complete dilution of the ideals for which the American Revolution has been fought has left us oppressed. The Constitution needs to be finely tuned to prevent such oppressive government from ruling over us. For instance, adding the word explicitly to the 10th Amendment, maybe even commissioning a council of censors every 7 years to determine whether the Constitution has been preserved inviolate in every part, or whether the government assume powers or exercise powers greater than they are entitled to by the Constitution, and to hold the violators criminally responsible. Such reasonable and needed changes will unlikely occur through the normal channels of government, because you would be asking a tyrant to relinquish his power and control. These are mere suggestive examples. Limiting taxes to 10% unless times of national emergency. If God can get by on 10%, surely a government can. Taxes are the single most oppressive element of any government. Freemen should not tolerate taxes so oppressive that they are basically working on behalf of the government half the year. This is where we are today, and it is unacceptable. There are Americans who are blind to the real condition of things, whose reasoning has been compromised, who chatter foolishly about non-issues, when the only real issue is submission to tyranny or the repression of it. If we must seek, we will, a second time, the horrors of war for our liberty against the horde of unprincipled politicians. We have been sold down the river, and the Constitution allowed it to happen. The political system we are currently under may have some fringe and tinsel stuck in it to catch the eye of the common people, but it is obvious that a complete tyranny is running the show. The very root of this oppression is anchored by the Federal Reserve Bank and its fiat money system, specifically underwritten on credit, not sound money. The power to remove or abolish any government is the root and source of all liberty. Without such power, the government has nothing to cause it to pause. As Americans, we have a revolutionary heritage that beckons us not to tolerate a corrupt, oppressive government. Let us not learn the art of submission. Our great aim must be to learn the art of war, which is the only skill that can free us. Our ancestors have shown us how to teach the enemies of liberty that undisciplined men fighting for their freedom are superior to veteran slaves. The Revolutionary War General John Stark said it best: "Live free or die. Death is not the greatest of evils. Sometimes killing is not a crime, it is a duty." Our American history proves that militia resistance is the answer to tyrannical government. For example, when the federal government raised taxes to support an army led by George Washington to repel a feared French invasion, the Virginia county of Dinwiddie in December 1798 passed a resolution calling on the militia forces to prepare themselves to prevail over Washington's army. Furthermore, on March 7, 1799, John Fries led an armed tax rebellion, seizing Marshal Williams Nicholas and forced him to free all his prisoners, as well as interfering with federal assessors. Federal Army regulars defeated these tax rebels. It's American nature to resist oppressive taxes and tyranny. It's in our blood. History lets us know a half-hearted defense of our rights will not suffice. Half measures are seldom enough and are almost never safe in a crisis. Half measures are unpardonable. We must go all in. Our only safety is in union. We must put aside all our internal divisions and prejudices and unite against our common foe. This cannot happen until all cynicism is eradicated. In other words, self-interest must take a back seat to the interest of the people as a whole, as a sovereign. We must be willing to sacrifice, just as the enemy is willing to sacrifice to try and keep us under their tyranny. A cynic never made an honorable patriot. Patriots founded this nation, and patriots are what is going to restore it. A patriot's job is never complete because there always exists some wicked men scheming to enslave their fellow men. A patriot is never discharged by death. A patriot is never discharged but by death. In closing, patriotism is not love of your government nor the love of your country, but is the love of liberty. American patriotism should not have to be coaxed. It should be inherent and ready to act when called upon, without hesitation, to suppress tyranny. With that, I believe this open letter to the American people has become tedious. Thus, I will end it here by simply saying, "Take good care" by Daniel Riley. Please remember Daniel Riley. Please write him a letter. God bless every one of you and have a great day.